lives in D.C.
Permanently now?
Yes,
Interesting.
he moved from somewhere else. His name is Hank.
Okay.
Hank something.
I'm sure I've met him at some point.
And yeah, nice guy.
Like
He
means he's
told me
not in
that she's
Portland.
doing like Amazon delivery or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. I think Kellen was like Ubering.
Yeah.
They did a big, like early on in the pandemic, they did one of those big like fundraiser kind of things.
Yes,
Like
I
donate
know.
things. They
Yeah,
had
I
like
did.
a sign, an album or whatever, and like I think that's when everybody thought this was gonna be like a few months, 15 days to stuff
Yeah, but
spread
dude,
or whatever.
they'll be back on the road 150 days a year
I mean,
next year
yeah, I'm sure
or
they
this
can't
year.
wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cigarettes.
Gotta get these guys synced up.
It was all poised.
You were ready to go, Billy?
Figured right.
I detected some poise.
I can feel the energy emanating from Billy all the way back
I'm
here.
twitchy today.
Jackie. Jackie. There's some back here on this pillar. Come on.
I guess it's still good morning. This week, the United States completed the process of transitioning to a new president. I want to again congratulate President Biden and Vice President Harris. I want to also thank President Trump and Vice President Pence for their service to our country. Also acknowledge the many achievements that their administration was able to achieve. In just 4 years, we were able to build the greatest American economy we've seen in a generation. Strengthen our military, passed historic peace deals, secured our southern border, and ratified the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. While there was change of the political party in the White House, the problems that we need to address still impact America. Our Republican, Democrat, and independents alike need to work together. President Biden takes over at a time when America needs to get back to work, get their kids back to school, and get every American vaccinated who wants one. This is an immediate national priority. So we must ask if the plans from the Biden administration are helping the American people who need it most. Are we helping businesses reopen and getting America back to work? Are we helping students get back into the classroom after many and millions of these kids have been learning from behind computers for almost nearly a year? Are we helping individuals, especially our most at-risk population, gain access to a vaccine? That is why I was disappointed to see within hours of assuming office, the new administration was more interested in helping illegal immigrants than helping our own citizens. More interested in virtue signals to the climate activists than supporting the union workers who were building the Keystone Pipeline. And more interested in appeasing the WHO than getting to the bottom of how China released this virus to the world in the first place. In fact, just this week, a panel established by the WHO itself said the organization failed to act quickly at the start of the pandemic. Instead of demanding leadership change and reforms, unfortunately, it's the wrong signal that the Biden administration is rewarding failure. These are the wrong priorities at the wrong time. Americans need our help at home, and that's where our focus must remain. That means Congress needs to step up as well. But instead, I just heard the majority party is now telling us to go home. one day into a new administration, one day, well, they're the majority in the House, and they just became the majority in the Senate, and they were just sworn in the White House, they tell us to go home, already canceling scheduled work week next week. I can promise you this. When Republicans are in the majority, we will not take the first week off. We'll keep the commitment to America that we promised, and that's exactly what we'll do. Republicans are here ready to work, ready to make sure that we get business back open again. We get kids back in school, and we get a vaccine to every person who wants one across America. To me, that is a unity agenda. To me, that's the priority that Americans want to see coming out of Washington. You can't achieve that if you tell people to go home and not work. You can't achieve that if your focus is more on the Paris Accord, ending a Keystone pipeline. Those are not the achievements that I think America wants to see out of Washington and unity. With that, let's take some questions.
Leader McCarthy, now your conference right now seems to be like in a complete split because you have the Freedom Caucus members are already circulating a petition to call on your conference chairwoman to resign from her post, and you have the Democrats who are calling for a censure of at least 2 members right now. Will your conference come together to stand behind those 2 members who are being called on to be censured? And where are you right now as far as the leadership is concerned, since there is a split as far as you guys are concerned on impeachment? Is there going to be any unity whatsoever going forward into this Congress?
You know, what's different within our party and maybe with others, people have difference of opinion. We will have a conference next week. We won't air it to the public, but we'll answer the questions everybody has. This is the same leadership team with the ranking members and others that came 5 seats away from winning a majority when everybody in America thought we were going to lose 20 seats. Yes, we allow differences of opinion inside our conference. They're welcomed. But I think there's questions that need to be answered, style in which things were delivered. At the end of the day, we will unify because our policies are right, which will unify us around. Do we have growing pains? Yes, we will. But we will do it in our private manner of a conference that we hold every time, and we'll have it next week. Yes, sir.
Liz Cheney to remain as conference chair or no?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Let's even change questions this year.
Well, after the rioters came into the Capitol on January 6th, you voted to overturn the results in Pennsylvania and Arizona. You also signed on to that Texas lawsuit to invalidate the elections. You waited until a couple of weeks ago to declare that Joe Biden won the election. Given the violence that we saw, do you regret the role you played anyway in sowing doubt about the election?
Look, I denounce any violence. Denounce it that day, denounce it now. I denounce it in the summer. I denounce what happened last night in Portland and Seattle as well. I'm very consistent. What I voted on wasn't to overturn an election because it wouldn't. It would not overturn. What I signed on to amicus was the exact same question that you did, a constitutional question about did a legislature have the right or did the legislature actually move through to make any changes? This is the same thing that has happened in the last 3 presidential elections. It's the same thing that Nancy Pelosi said on the floor when she said, this is democracy, we should debate it. It's different than when Jim Clyburn voted to overturn Ohio, which you'd say, because that would change the outcome of the presidential election. So let's be very clear on what we did. If mine was based upon policy and principle, yes, I would stay the course. I've always denounced whatever individuals did here, what they did in the summer and what they did last night. That's un-American, that's undemocratic, and anybody involved in that should be prosecuted. I've been very, very clear about that from day one. So thank you.
Why didn't you come
What
out
else?
earlier and say that the election was free and fair?
Go right ahead.
As a follow-up to his question,
Yes.
Are you concerned about fundraising this quarter now that dozens of corporate PACs have said that they're not going to support people who objected to the Electoral College results?
Not at all. Yes.
To follow up on that, do you think that members of Congress who had any role in what happened on January 6th should be prosecuted?
Well, if any member participated in breaking law or rioting that way, yes. I think anybody should be held accountable to that process. I do not know of any member that has done that. And this is why I called for last week after this happened, a bipartisan commission. We should get to the bottom of this. There are so many questions that need to be answered. There's so many questions that I had personally as a leader. I read in the paper that the FBI, prior to any rally, had information that something was going to happen here and conveyed that to the Capitol Police. I want to know, why was the Republican leader not notified of that? Why was I not notified to make sure we protect? Even though I had House administration attend a meeting where they said they had correct preparation, where they knew the National Guard and others. Was the National Guard called soon enough? Was it brought forward soon enough? Were there reasons why the National Guard maybe wasn't having armed? Is there a reason when something happened from the summer of why they would not be brought up sooner? I have questions about this building, what I was told, what was protected, what doors could not be opened or entered or penetrated. Well, that didn't go through. There's a lot of planning through, and the only way you're going to be able to answer these questions is through a bipartisan commission. So let's get and have all the facts before we accuse anybody of anything, but let's all base it upon the facts and the knowledge that we need to know.
And to follow up on that, Leader McConnell has said that former President Trump and other important people provoked those folks to come to the Capitol. Do you believe that former President Trump provoked?
I don't believe he provoked if you listen to what he said at the rally. Yes, sir.
What role should former President Trump have in the Republican Party going forward?
Look, going forward, every former president still has a role within their party for the time basis. This president brought a lot of great success within. He brought people to the party that haven't been involved before, and he should continue to engage in that way. But the one thing, I got to ask a question earlier about what should the Republican Party focus, or who should be the leader within the party. The one thing we learned in the last 4 years that President Trump brought forward, that he listened to voices that no one else was hearing on either party. Those are the voices we should continue to hear. And you know what they're saying right now? They're watching an administration that says 11 million illegal immigrants are now going to become citizens. You almost have 11 million Americans who are out of work right now. Who's listening to their voice? Or to the millions of parents out there that want to have their children go back to school to have an education. Who's championing for them? When we signed back up to the WHO without getting any accountability or any answers to why did they lie to the world? Or to the union worker who's building the Keystone Pipeline. Idea that we're going to lower our energy costs, make us stronger around the world, less dependent on the Middle East. That America became energy independent just about a year ago. And why are we moving backwards? Why are we making the cost higher? Those are the people who both parties should be listening to. Those are the things that should be working. So no, when they hear the majority leader and the Speaker of the House say, take the next week off, they're probably very concerned about both parties. When they hear that the first actions that we take aren't about getting the economy moving again, they're wondering who's listening in Washington. I'm going to promise you this. We're listening and we'll take action. Yes, sir.
Leader McCarthy, with Democrats now holding the balance of power, what is the future of the Hyde Amendment, which prevents taxpayer funding of abortion? And will you do anything to try to secure the Hyde Amendment?
Yes, but the Hyde Amendment should not just be a Republican issue, it's an American issue. Regardless of where you fall on this position, should taxpayers' money be spent for this? Because you know what? The Hyde Amendment has been agreed to for decades, not just by Republicans, but Republicans and Democrats. I think the individual that's sitting in the White House today had voted for it many times. It'd be interesting if people would change their opinion now. That would seem pretty political to me, instead of being a basis on what your principles stand for. Thank you all very much. I hope you have a great week.
Thank you.
I'll be back here working next week.
I guess it's gonna be more of the same going forward, huh?
You gonna take that now?
I don't.
If you wouldn't mind, that'd be amazing. I think I can do that. Appreciate it. I'll be there in a second.